One day, were Blake out for some sparring match between her two friends, Yang and Yang's younger half-sister, Rose. Both Rose and Yang had asked Blake if she was up for some sparring match between them, since they were looking for another person to have a sparring match with. And since Blake didn't have any other plans for the day, so she agreed. So they went to this location for the sparring match. And they have been sparring for at least 5 hours. And Blake actually enjoyed her sparring match between her two friends to help them to improve their skills and also to improve her own skills. But after 5 hours of sparring match, both Yang and Rose said that they had to go because they had some other plans to do, and Blake said that he was actually very happy to at least helping them with their some sparring match. She said if they were willing to have some more sparring match, just always come to see her. She will always be helping them. After that both of them had left, Blake remained in that spot for at least a while training herself when suddenly she heard this loud sound in a distance. At first she thought there was maybe someone doing an accident or something because it sounded like an explosion or if someone had set off a gunpowder explosion or something. But the sound wasn't even remotely as gunpowder explosion because she had actually heard that type of sound before. But then she thought, what if someone actually was hurt? So she followed where the sound came from, and she did saw this brief light. But it was only for a brief second before she didn't. But at least she knew where this direction came from. So she followed where at least what she thought it came from. After a few minutes of searching, she actually came to the spot. There was a small clearing in the part of the woods that she was training at. And it was actually someone or something laying on the ground unconscious. She had no idea what it was at first because she saw that there was someone actually wearing clothes, pants, a vest. But as she was getting closer, she immediately recognized this was not a human. She was assuming maybe it was some form of a Grim. But then she realized this couldn't be a Grim. Because Grims, they don't wear clothes. Because this was just wearing pants, shoes, and a vest. So, what was this? Could this from another kingdom or something? She thought to herself. As she was looking further, as he was stepping further closer to this being or creature, she saw this was like a fox. But a humanoid fox. And that's one thing that she had never seen before. As she was walking up to this, there was one distinguished about this particular fox that she knew was completely different from a regular fox. This one had 2 tails, and she had never heard of a fox or any other mammal with 2 tails. And especially a fox that was wearing clothes. She has never heard stories about this either. So she grabbed a small stick nearby and poked this creature just to see if it was actually alive or dead. After only a few pokes, suddenly this creature slowly woke up and sat up, looked around, and it turned out that this creature or this individual was in a daze. At first, when he saw Blake standing there only about a few feet away from him, he immediately stood up and was in defensive mode, like they tried to attack her. But it was probably not the best because he was still in a daze and he was swinging back and forward like he was not in a right state of mind. She didn't even try to attack him or even raise a weapon because she saw that this creature wasn't even in a state of mind to even attack her. But she only said, "Who are you?" And this creature said his name was Tails. She was a little surprised that this fox was actually talking. She wasn't even expecting that this fox would even be able to speak. But then, how would that even be otherwise possible if this was a humanoid fox, was wearing clothes, another detail is that this particular fox could talk, and Blake has never heard or seen such animal or creature that could either be talking or wearing clothes. So she had never in her life seen anything like this. But as she was looking at this creature, or this fox, she saw that he was still swinging back and forth to sides as he was still in a half asleep state. She asked him if he was okay. He said that he was okay but just felt a bit a daze. Then Blake somehow suggested he will come with her to her place so that he could have some rest. This was really a bit strange because normally Blake wouldn't just simply suggest this to complete strangers or, in this case, a talking animal, just come with her to her place so that that person could sleep. But at the moment, this fox, who said his name was Tails, didn't show wasn't opposed on any threat towards her. So, even though he was okay with that, so he did follow with her to this place of hers, she showed him the couch, and as he lay down, he was quickly knocked out. He was literally fast asleep. As Blake was sitting in her own room talking to herself about this creature, she did have some books of some magical creatures that in the past that someone like Grimm's. She did look through some of the books that she had, but there were no match of any known magical creatures or any other animals that resembles as Tails. So in her mind, what if it was actually one undiscovered creature that lived in one of those kingdoms without having been discovered? Or if he was actually from somewhere else, maybe from an undiscovered continent or something. She had no idea what he or where he could have been from. By the next day, he woke up and he was more fully rested. He was actually now curious to know where he were, because when he was in this half-asleep, a daze mode, he didn't actually process at first where he was actually were, but when he saw Blake, he was immediately ready to attack because he thought that he would attack her, but she didn't. She said, "Did you sleep well?" And then he said, "Yes, I did." Then he asked her who she was, and she said her name was Blake Belladonna, and she asked his name. His name was Miles Prower, or referred to be known as Tails. She asked him to sit down on the couch while she served him something to drink and eat, even though this was very curious about Tails. But at the moment, Blake didn't show any hostilities towards them, but he didn't lower his guard down just in case, because this could have been a trick. So, after only a few minutes, she came back with some food and some drinks. As they were talking about themselves, she wanted to know more about him, where he was from. Like, she did ask him from which kingdom that he was from. She mentioned the names of the world that she was from, but he told her that he had never heard of those kingdoms before. And when he asked what the name of this world is, she said Remnant. Remnant, he said. "I had never heard of that name before," he said. Then she asked where he was from. He explained that he was from a world called Mobius, and that was a world she never had happened to her before. So he explained how he ended up in this world, at least when he thinks happened. He explained that he was along with some friends were fighting against an enemy that he used some form of magical seven emeralds that contained a very powerful magic, and that one of his friends attacked the machine that what they were contained in and caused us some form of teleportation, and that is the only explanation that he believes that he ended up in this world, because there was no other explanations in his mind. She was actually kind of a bit curious, and she did believe him, because first, he didn't seem to be the one to be lying, and after all, she has never seen or heard of a being or a creature like him before. So, after a while, they start to trust each other. And then, then she had to ask him what his role were back in his world. He said that he was an inventor. He had invented a lot of things. Flying machines, weapons, you name it, he said. That was impressive, she said. But she wanted to ask him if he was planning to go back to his own world. But he said that he had no idea. Without this Chaos Emeralds, as he called them, there was no way for to know exactly if he would able to go back. And he said since his world has the magic, but he has no idea if they were strong enough to send him back. So he was actually allowed to study some of the magic books that she had. And if he wanted to know more, she had to go somewhere to get some more books. And during this time, Tails was staying at Blake's house, or her home. And during this time, he had been studying a lot of books that she had, her own home, and the books that she borrowed. He was studying those books to learn more about her world, like these creatures, and when she did mention of this creature called Grims, he studied more about them, and he was surprised that they were such dark enemies, like dark evil of darkness. So, but during this time, Tails and Blake actually had started this very good friendship. And even at first, Blake was very hesitating to even allow it to stay for long. But one day when Blake and Tails were talking, suddenly there was a knock on the door. She opened it, well, at least asked who it was, and it was her friend Yang and her sister Rose. They were asking if they could come in for a bit and they said yes. But then she forgot to tell Tails to hide. Every time that she had visitors over, or someone like actually came over, she had to tell Tails to hide, because she had no idea how the others would react if they saw him. But this time, she totally forgot about it, and as Yang and Rose walked in this living room space area, they saw him on the couch reading, and they looked at Blake and they asked, like, what is he? And what is he doing here? They were really surprised and a bit almost defensive, like say they were trying to attack him. But Blake said, don't, he's my friend. And they like, your friend? He's a Grim, isn't it? But he just said, no, I'm not a Grim. They were surprised to see this humanoid fox talking. And after a while, as they were sitting down themselves, Tails and Blake told them both about what happened, who he was and where he was from. Even though that Blake could see from Yang's and Rose's faces that they couldn't even believe it. They have a hard time to believe that Tails was from another world, and it's that he ended up there, by some magical stones, or at least emeralds that he said. But Tails convinced them enough that he wasn't even that dangerous. And they even asked him how he felt about Blake. And to Blake's most surprising when he actually said that he likes her very much, because he's in his words that she is the most beautiful person that he has ever seen. And he also was asked if he was trying to get back to his own world, but said to them back as respond, no, I'm actually staying here. I would have to come to realize that I can't go back. I'm stuck here forever. So I decided to live here and do my best what he can do. Jane and Rose was actually quite surprised that Blake was blushing when Tails mentioned that he had eventually feelings for her. And Jane asked her if she had feelings for Tails. And she just nodded. Despite they had known each other for only about this point a few weeks, they had already started have feelings for each other. But this was the first time both of them actually admitted they have feelings for each other. So, eventually, after some time later on, Tails and Blake made their official relationship official. But there was only a small problem. They didn't know how other people react, because Yang and Rose supported this. But eventually, things would eventually get stronger. Because when she introduced Tails to her parents, and since her father was the current chief or chieftain of the tribe, and she was very hesitating that her parents, especially her father, would not believe this, and that she was very scared that her father will somehow maybe hunt him down, track him, or something worse. But at first, both her parents actually were a little hesitating, but seeing how much really Blake, how much Blake really liked Tails, and knowing that they can see that Tails were actually such a good guy. Because when her mother saw when she was talking about the good things about Tails, her eyes were sparkling, and for that, her parents gave them support. Even though at first they was hesitating, but after they got to know Tails a bit more, because she and Tails went to see her parents quite often. After a while, they did support them there more officially after maybe for about a month or so. But eventually, rest of the world, or at least the rest of the kingdom, became aware of Tails' existence. As for Blake's words or beliefs that people would think that he was a grim or other type of dark being. But after seeing how he was good to other people and how he's good to Blake, of all things, they changed their opinion about him. But after Blake and Tails had been together for about 3 years, Blake and Tails wanted to get married. So they actually held their wedding in the settlement of her parents, which her father, the one acting as the priest of the ceremony. Tails actually was happy, and Blake had asked Yang to be her maid of honor, which she accepted. Even at the wedding reception, others could see how happy both Tails and Blake were together. They even went to celebrate their honeymoon at a small place near the coast for about a week. But after being married for about 3 years, they decided they wanted to start a family. But unfortunately for them, they wouldn't have been able to have any children of their own. But luckily for they knew there were this orphanage that they wanted to adopt kids from. They adopted a boy named Leo, and 2 years later, they adopted a daughter which was named Anna. So when Leo and Anna was adopted into the family, they were at first very hesitating to trust Tails, but when they saw him such a cool dad and that he could fly with his own tails and that he was inventing a lot of things, they actually trusted him. And eventually, they became such happy to have a new family of their own. And even though Blake herself was at first never thought that she would find her true love, but especially in a humanoid fox named Tails from a whole different universe, and Tails, he never thought that he would find someone else like himself, but eventually he did. And both of them were just happy to be able to do that. And this is how Tails and Blake found a true love, got a big family together at the end.